This event was pulled together very, very quickly. Many people were involved in the background, but when we found out that Sandra Higgins was available to come because she was speaking at Brock University yesterday, we thought, oh my gosh, we've got to take advantage of that. So I just want to acknowledge the only reason we were able to pull this off was Hugh Riley. I don't know if you've all been able to meet him, but woo! So Hugh, if you just want to welcome everyone because it's your home.
Thank you, Nikki Hayes.
You're welcome.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Hello. Great to have you all here. A lot of familiar faces. It's really nice to be part of this event that Nikki Hayes has worked so hard to organize. So, right?
Yes, and Hugh said he's going vegan. What time tonight?
Right now.
Oh, right
now. Yeah. No. Thank you. I can't handle the pressure. So thanks, Nikki. And yeah, just everyone, if you know what we do here at that channel, so if you have businesses or projects or causes to promote, then just get in touch with me or Nikki Hayes or Chris or
just Google that channel.
You know, thatchannel.com.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for coming, and I'm going to turn it back over to Nikki.
Okay. Thank you. Great. Okay, no worries. Okay, and also, I don't know if any of you if you've all had a chance to try this amazing food. So I just want to invite, I think Rachel, are you just going to, or Kate Tati? Do you want to come up and just let people know, and then Ivan will come up and just share what he's doing too. So
just talk a little bit more.
Yeah, just a couple.
Okay, so we brought tapioca Brazil here today, which is tapioca is a traditional. It's a traditional dish in Brazil, and the tapioca flour is made of cassava or yuca, and it's already hydrated, so it's straight from the packaging to a frying pan. Don't need to add water or anything. That's the traditional tapioca. I don't know if most of you tried already. If you haven't tried, please come and try some. And it's not, like, it can be made into savory or sweet. There's no salt added or sugars in the actual flour. So it's very versatile. If you'd like to make some pancakes, what we're doing here today also is we simply added some mashed bananas to the tapioca flour and made some sweet pancakes. And we have loads of toppings, so you're more than welcome to come and try. And we're also selling like the packages for 50 like to take home today, or if any other time, just contact us. We have our business cards, and you can always contact me on Facebook as well. I'm friends with most of you here today. Thank you.
Now you want to come? And Ivan Castro, who I just met the other day, and he was so generous to bring these amazing tostados. So I'd love people to know how to get a hold of you. And
I've been vegan for almost 5 years. I'm from Mexico City. So I'm a chef. One of my hobbies is eating, and the other one is cooking. So and my favorite, of course, my favorite food is Mexican. So I made this lentil ceviche because, like, 5 years ago, I used to like the fish ceviche. So I miss like that dish. So I made this with lentils, oyster mushrooms, and a little bit of seaweed for that like a fishy taste. And the secret ingredient is roasted jalapeno to make it like, today I made it like mild, but usually I like a little bit more spicy. But that's what I do. I am a personal chef. I have Instagram, follow me if you want. I have my business is Vegan Artisan, and that is it. I love cooking, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
And then the other amazing vegan chef that couldn't be here is Kelly Kerr, Vegan Abler. So those are the mini quiches that she made and donated for Sandra. So just before we start, if everyone can turn their cell phone off. After you've tweeted out that we're live streaming in a few minutes, tweet out first. So turn your cell phones off. And so how this is going to go, at 1 o'clock we go live stream. Jenny McQueen is going to come up to the podium. Sandra is going to give her presentation, and then there'll be a Q&A, and we'll see how long that goes. And Sandra, there's someone who was not able to physically be here, but they wanted to say hello to you. Okay? Chris, go ahead.
Hello, Sandra.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes.
So it's wonderful that you're in North America. I was always looking forward to you coming and starting the Go Vegan World campaign in North America.
Oh, stylish.
Yes, it is stylish.
So good to hear you. And I'm sorry that you can't be here, but you're here in spirit.
Well, thank you so much. I hope things are going well in Ireland despite the snowstorm.
It's a worrying time.
Yes, I understand. So please enjoy your time, and thank you so much. People in Tucson and Phoenix are also looking forward to seeing your billboards here.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
Thank you, Salish.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Just so everyone knows, Salish Rio is the founder of Climate Healers. So he has a hashtag vegan2026, I believe. Yes. So anyway, I just thought that would be a great surprise for you. Okay, I'm turning everything over to Jenny McQueen. Jenny, use this mic.
I will.
It's working better. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Are we on?
We will be. Yeah. I'm just going to go check with Hugh. Okay. 1 second.
Okay, so welcome everybody, and welcome to the people online. Hopefully we've got a big audience joining us via live stream as well. My name's Jenny McQueen. I'm an activist in Toronto, and I'm super excited that we have Sandra Higgins visiting us from Ireland. This lady has managed to get a huge ad campaign happening already in Toronto. There's 400 ads in over 80 locations, including restaurants like Hemingway's, which is a really high-end restaurant in Yorkville. It's like, my God, how did you do that? Okay, so Go Vegan World is the amazing campaign that Sandra has been able to create. And I think one of the big successes that I saw recently was the fact that Sandra was able to have the word inhumane applied to milk. We all know as activists that is the case, and having the UK advertising agency agree that activists could describe milk as being inhumane is incredible. So well done for that. Not only an ad campaign, but Sandra is the founder of Eden Farmed Animal Sanctuary in Ireland, just north of Dublin, with over 100 residents. As well, she's the founder of Matilda's Promise, which is an actual physical centre for animal rights and vegan education. She's an author. She's a published author, 2 books. One is The Power of Compassion, and the other one is How to Be Healthy and Happy, which I'm going to go off and purchase after this talk. So, in this talk, if you're not vegan, this will give you some reasons as to why it's a good idea. If you're already vegan and an activist, then it will give you inspiration as to why Go Vegan World is a campaign that we can get behind and we can support. Questions can be taken throughout the talk, but there is a Q&A period between 2 and 3, so feel free to save your questions. And with no further ado, I shall now introduce Sandra.
Thank you. Thank you to
all the people who've helped organise this wonderful event, to Nikki and the hosts, Hugh, all the people who've cooked all the wonderful food here today. So I'm here to talk to you, but really I'm just the spokesperson for the residents at Eden Farmed Animal Sanctuary, the sanctuary that I run in Ireland. There are over 100 animals living there. So they inspire and inform everything I do. So really I'm just here to represent them and what I know they need from the human world. And they're in turn representing the billions of animals who are bred and used and killed at our hands every year. Go Vegan World is a public education campaign. It uses advertising to show the public who the animals are, and it challenges us to stop being violent towards them. It's a unique campaign because it's inspired and informed by those residents of Eden that I mentioned to you. And many of the residents themselves appear in the ads. And then you'll see, when you see the ads downtown, you'll see that their names are on the ads and where they live at Eden. So this really personalises them, and it makes visible what has been made invisible in our society, the systemic violence that's made invisible. They're not fictional or anonymous, they're real feeling beings with names and histories and personalities who have resisted and survived this hidden, dangerous world of animal agriculture to come and live at Eden and make Eden their home. And through Go Vegan World, they're very much engaged in their own struggle for species justice. So I don't go along with the idea that the animals we use are voiceless. They have a language and they have a voice. And through this campaign, they've been able to use that voice and show the world who they are and ask for what they want. In the time we have today, I'm going to speak to you about how Go Vegan World is structured and executed and how it has been received by the public in the countries where I've run it. I'll explain how the residents have influenced its ethos and the underlying beliefs that we have about animal rights and the methods of advocacy that I'm using that I believe have made this campaign such a success. So I have a lot of literature here today that's free for you to take home and use in your own advocacy. And there are very strict conditions of use that form a legally binding agreement between anyone who uses our literature and the residents of Eden and their campaign. And this is the reason we have such stringent control on it is so that the campaign remains true to its ethos and so that its reputation is respected and it can continue. Go Vegan World began in Ireland on World Vegan Day 2015. Ireland thrives on its image as an island populated by farm families who lovingly tend to the animals in their care. Animal agriculture is regarded as the backbone of a strong economy, the well-being of which is an essential component of Ireland's aim of feeding the world. This goal of feeding the world involves breeding and killing even more animals, despite the ethical arguments against animal use, as well as the intersectional arguments because of the damage to the biosphere. For example, in the 1980s, over 500 Irish river sites were pristine, and now only 21 are. Ireland has over 33% of greenhouse gas emissions attributable to animal agriculture, much of that emanating from the rapidly expanding dairy industry. In fact, in 2 years' time, the Irish taxpayer will face a bill of €450 million in fines for failing to meet the targets for emission reduction. It's very easy to fool consumers into believing that what they're buying is harmless. In fact, packaging in Ireland only needs to carry an Irish label for consumers to feel confident that not only are they spending their money in an ethical manner, but they're actually doing something good to help other animals. Those who profit from them are portrayed as caring for them as affectionately as they would their own children. But scratch beneath the surface, and the reality is quite different. Despite its portrayal as an idyllic place for farmed animals and the people who profit from them as caring animal lovers, Ireland is a terrible place to be if you're not human. Ireland is 142 times smaller than Canada. And this tiny island, with a human population of only 5 million, punches way above its weight in terms of animal exploitation. It's the largest exporter of bovine flesh in the Northern Hemisphere, outstripping the US, Canada and Mexico. It's the 10th largest dairy exporter in the world. 1 in 7 babies worldwide is fed the milk of Irish cows. It has a large vivisection industry which is closely tied to its pharmaceutical and its medical devices industry. And it's the largest breeder of thoroughbred horses in Europe, most of them used in the horse racing industry. This is the Ireland that Go Vegan World was born into. It's not surprising that our ads were literally torn down from the billboards in Ireland. Every one of the 74 billion land animals, trillions of sea animals, and countless undocumented other animals killed by us every year is a unique individual who only had one life. We don't have a right to take their lives, regardless of how well we treat them before we kill them. For hundreds of years we have prevaricated on what other animals need from us. By focusing on animal welfare instead of animal rights, we've attempted to justify our use of them by comforting ourselves that we look after their basic needs. When another being is bred onto this earth as a resource for us, with the death sentence on her young head, her welfare can never be respected because her very right to freedom, autonomy and life has been violated. While another living, feeling being is our legal property, her welfare is never going to matter as much as our need to profit from her. When another being is thought of as an ingredient whose purpose is to serve our needs, then her needs will never matter as much as even the most trivial of our desires. We fool ourselves into believing that keeping them alive until we kill them is somehow caring for them, and their welfare can never matter while they have no rights. Their rights will always be violated as long as we condone the use of any of them, even in tiny amounts on rare occasions. For the last 3 years, Go Vegan World has advertised animal rights and vegan education to the public throughout Ireland, the UK and internationally. And it has carried this clear, consistent message that we are morally obliged to stop using other animals as our resources. It's inspired and informed by the residents of Eden, and they feature in many of our ads residents like Emily and Charlotte, who were rescued from the meat industry and taken to live at Eden, where they've given us the opportunity to get to know them as the unique individuals they are, who represent the billions of others who live tortured lives and die unknown at our hands every year. So this is what makes Go Vegan World a really unique campaign. These individuals who are named on the ads and who represent their comrades have taken to the streets and confronted us with who they are and what they need from us. Since I opened the sanctuary in 2008, I've been privileged to witness the character and personality, as well as the complexity, sophistication and courage of the individuals who live there. They arrive as traumatized victims of human use, often in their early childhoods. Some of them newly born, heartlessly taken from their mothers, like Cormac in this ad, in this photo, who was rescued within hours of his birth. Many of them arrive exhausted and terrified at their ordeal at human hands, like Gabriel in this photograph, who is a victim of torture. And despite their terrible histories, they have the courage to heal and trust and thrive. I know them intimately, and because of this, I have felt confident enough to run Go Vegan World in the manner in which I do. There's only one reason to go vegan, and that's animal rights. Go Vegan World is an animal rights campaign. We don't talk very much about food or cosmetics or vegan clothing or any of those consumer options. There are plenty of other groups doing that, and that's not what veganism is about. There are many benefits to going vegan for humans. They include the fact that a whole foods plant diet is better for our health, a plant diet is less harmful to the environment, a plant-based economy would avoid a lot of the injustice that we perpetrate on workers who are employed in animal exploiting industries. But these are merely benefits of veganism. So if they didn't exist, we still have a moral obligation to go vegan. In fact, a reducitarian approach, where we reduce our use of other animals, that encourages people to just reduce their exploitation, is actually very helpful if your aim is human health or reduction in greenhouse gas emissions or protection of the environment. But a reducitarian approach is not enough when the goal is non-violence and animal rights, because it still views other animals as ingredients or tools of human use. It still encourages a species lens, and that's what Go Vegan World targets. Really, speciesism is the problem. The problem is not the availability of products in the supermarket. Activists who fail to call for a complete cessation of other animals seem to believe that going vegan is difficult. So that's why veganism is often presented through this lens of restriction. And we're doing the animals a terrible disservice. That's why members of the public are saying, I couldn't do that. That's too difficult. Because I'll tell you something, I work as a psychologist, and people come into me every day of the week on atrocious diets. I wouldn't last for 2 days on the diets that they're on if they think it'll benefit their health or make them look younger or thinner. So it's not the difficulty is not the barrier to veganism. And we're pushing this image out there that makes veganism appear difficult. And we need to continually examine why we're doing what we're doing and the methods we're using. And if we find there's something that we're doing that's not helping, and that's me included, we need to stop. We need to think about it and stop. Most people believe that it's wrong to unnecessarily harm others. So advertising veganism as a challenge is wrong. There's nothing challenging about veganism. The only thing challenging about veganism is the trauma that so many of us experience when we witness what we used to pay for. And we face up to this very dark side of our human nature, and how easily it was hidden from us, and how willing we were to play our part in keeping it in the dark when it intruded on our convenience or our habits or our social life. I went vegan 10 years ago. We didn't have any of the products on the shop shelves that we have now in Ireland. In fact, in Ireland we don't have any of the products that you have here. We certainly have vegan cheese and a few things like that, but it's only in the last 12 or 24 months that they've even appeared in supermarkets. It was still easy to go vegan because we were doing it for the right reasons. If you think of the 1944, when Donald Watson and his wife coined the word vegan, they thought that their health would suffer, but they still went vegan because they were doing it for the right reasons. In an effort to make veganism attractive, it's been presented in the media and by our own movement as a trendy lifestyle and a diet, or something to do with health benefits. And as a result of these misconceptions of what veganism is, many people put their effort into the behavioural, consumerist aspects of veganism, such as our consumer choices. And that's why social media is flooded with the latest vegan cheese or vegan perfume or vegan makeup or whatever. That's not how the human mind works. Of course, when we make the lifestyle easier for people, it's going to enhance the chances of success. But behavioural change only occurs when we first make changes to how we think and we feel about other beings. That's across the board. We can't change our behaviour unless we first change how we think and we feel about something. Veganism is the moral conviction that it's wrong to unnecessarily harm another being. I've noticed, even since I came to Canada, if you go into a shop or a hotel and you tell people they're vegan, they tell people you're vegan, they say, oh, so you eat healthy. In fact, somebody said to me yesterday, oh, you eat healthy, we're getting some vegan free stuff in this week. But it's our fault. That is our fault that they think like that. Our socially sanctioned, violent behaviour towards non-humans will not change because of the availability of consumer choices. It can't change in any meaningful, lasting way until we alter the species' ways in which we think and feel about them. So this is what Go Vegan World targets: how people think and feel about other animals. The very presence of the animals in these ads, representing other animals in ways that resist and counter their traditional representation of as objects of human use, that in itself is challenging speciesism. Go Vegan World is a very large, highly structured and detailed campaign that has run thousands of ads and reached millions of people. It's the result of over 20 years of my work as a psychologist on the very issues that affect species justice and vegan education, how people think and feel. For instance, why does one person find the very thought of how a piece of cheese got to somebody's plate to be absolutely tragic and traumatizing, and another person can eat it without qualm? What enables us to empathize with other animals as our sentient and moral equals? What moves us? What gives us the courage to admit that we're wrong and change how we behave? And what conditions make it safe for us to change? And how can we demonstrate animal rights as an ethical stance and the solution to speciesism, a very serious social justice issue, and the interrelated dilemmas when the media and even our own movement persist in reducing it to a diet and trivialising it? And how can we do this without resorting to the graphic details that people are so used to using to try and shock, because that can also be counterproductive. So this campaign is also the result of a decade of my research into what works in vegan education. But its greatest strength is that I got to know the animals at Eden intimately. The goal of Go Vegan World is to move us closer to that time when the fundamental rights of every sentient being not to be owned or used by us is upheld by everyone. And this goal can't be achieved without vegan education in the very broadest sense of the word. The campaign is about other animals and for other animals. Almost every ad tells a personal story of one of the residents and my experience of their lives. It'd be very difficult to see this photo, a photo like this in an ad, and miss this beautiful trust between Emily and Ula, who cared for her. What Emily has taught us about who she is and our knowledge of where she came from, because a farmer who ran a factory farm voluntarily gave her and her sister to us, has inspired ads that have appeared all over the UK, Ireland and on social media, ads that have affected some people so deeply that the ad themselves was enough for them to turn vegan, which is not something that I ever expected when I started this campaign. When I first ran the campaign in Ireland, it immediately caught the eye of the public and the attention of the media. For the same effort that I had been expending for years doing vegan education in our local town and only reaching a few people, I was now able to reach them in their millions. And I will always be grateful to the people who supported and enabled this campaign to happen. We took a chance because we didn't know how effective it might be, and I'm so grateful that we took that chance. It moved to Northern Ireland and then expanded to the UK in 2016, and it opened on a trial run in Canada this week. It has grown to reach hundreds of millions of people, creating billions of impacts and opportunities for people to research the issue of animal rights for themselves, because this campaign is not enough in itself to make people go vegan. None of us as activists make others go vegan. We provide information and they do the research, and they allow the information that they've gained to change their thoughts and how they feel about other beings. So people go vegan by themselves, and we can't take the credit for that. But what we do need to do is give the information to them that will maximise the chances that they will go vegan. I always say to people, you know, that this information that I'm giving, that's in my literature, that's on the website, that's in this campaign, that it's your human right to know. And then it's your responsibility to act. But it's your human right to know, and you can't make a decision about whether it's right or wrong, or whether you want to be vegan or not, without adequate information. The most significant success of Go Vegan World to date has been the finding by the Advertising Standards Authority against the dairy industry and in favour of Go Vegan World, allowing us to label the use of animals for dairy production as unjust and inhumane, regardless of adherence to welfare considerations. For those of you who are not aware of this finding, I'll give you some brief background. We ran this ad in the UK Telegraph newspaper in February 2017. It shows this cow behind a barbed wire fence and is accompanied by an eyewitness statement of standard dairy practice. The statement describes my visit to a dairy in 2009, which was what prompted me to go vegan. It reads, "I went vegan the day I visited a dairy. The mothers, still bloody from birth, searched and called frantically for their babies. Their daughters, fresh from their mothers' wombs but separated from them, trembled and cried piteously, drinking milk from rubber teats on the wall instead of their mother's nurturing breasts, all because humans take their milk. Their sons are slaughtered for their flesh, and they themselves are slaughtered at 6 years. Their natural lifespan is 25 years. I could no longer participate in that. Can you?" Complaints were made to the Advertising Standards Authority by the National Farmers Union, alleging that the claims made in the ads couldn't be substantiated and that they were misleading readers. We substantiated all the claims made in the ads by providing scientific evidence from the dairy industry itself and from peer-reviewed scientific journals. Our response demonstrated that far from suggesting that the issue is a failure to comply with welfare regulations, dairy is inherently unjust and inhumane, even under the best standards of welfare. Based on the evidence provided in our submission, the Advertising Standards Authority ruled in our favour. This is highly significant and unprecedented in animal rights campaigning. Although the finding is confined to the use of other animals in the dairy industry, rather than to all animal use, which is what the campaign is about, it's the first time that it was made clear to the public that it is the legal standard practice entailed in the products that we buy from the shop shelf that means that those products can never be justified, and that the only fair thing to do is stop buying them, stop buying anything that involved the exploitation of anyone else. This is the first time that journalists have written accurately about the distinction between animal welfare and our right to own and use other animals in the first place. How did a small sanctuary from Ireland win this right for other animals that's so significant that it made front page news in the UK Times, coverage in all prominent and UK media outlets, as well as media coverage in, I think it was 96 countries worldwide? It did so because it's a very simple campaign that tells the truth, one that lets the animals speak for themselves. We'll never be the celebrities of the vegan movement. We have no desire to be. But it's a small campaign that stays absolutely truthful to the message that I have got from the animals that I work with about what they need from the human world. I think this simplicity and the truthfulness to the animal's own nature is very visible in this ad that I'm going to show you. It's one of our social media ads, and a lot of it was filmed at Eden. the volume on that was actually very low, so if one of the technical guys might turn up the volume for the next video. So this vegan guide that we advertise in this ad, I have plenty of them here today. They're free for you to use in your own activism, as long as you're willing to adhere to our conditions of use. So just if you want a box sent to you, just write to me. The campaign is entirely animal focused. It gives a clear and consistent call for a clear and consistent and unequivocal call for veganism, and it seeks complete cessation of animal use for human ends. Although it has come to be recognised alongside large organisations, Go Vegan World is not large. It's a grassroots organisation, and it will always be a grassroots organisation. The campaign is created, designed and managed on a voluntary basis by me. So all the funding that we get is used on the ads. We don't have any overheads or salaries to pay. The campaign mission is to put veganism on the public agenda. As long as we continue to think of them through the lens of our superiority to them or their difference from us, we'll continue to exploit them. They're hidden from our view, so we don't see them for who they are, who they were, before they appeared on our kitchen tables. These are not the values that we claim to cherish. They're not the traits that any of us had as children. Sociocultural inheritance of animal use, along with careful deception by the industries that profit from it, combine to enable us to behave in ways that are inconsistent with our deeply held ethical beliefs and values. Much of this influence happens through advertising. It happens in the families and the schools that we grew up in. If you think of it, you know, literally, metaphorically and literally, we've all been fed animal foods from, some of us, from the day that we were born. And when something is that entrenched, it's very hard to think or see outside the box. So it takes courage to jump outside that box and see reality for what it is. The aim of Go Vegan World is simply to expose this inconsistency between our values and our behaviour, so that we become informed, conscious and aware. It doesn't aim for people to cause less harm. It asks people to just simply stop harming. It asks them to recognise the preciousness of life to the person living that life, regardless of species. Rather than focus on atrocities and breaches in welfare legislation that we're all too familiar with as activists, it just asks us to stop breeding them for our use at all. And I have done this for a number of reasons. The first is you couldn't get those pictures up on the ads anyway. If you think in terms of equality, you know, for victims of child abuse or domestic violence, we don't show the intimate details of what they're going through in advertising or educational campaigns to encourage non-violence. So, you know, why should we do it to other animals? And the problem when you show that kind of graphic material is you get this defence from non-vegans and people who are reluctant to go vegan, and from the industry. Oh, we have the best welfare standards in the world. And the animal, the individual and their personality and who they are gets hidden between their status as a victim. So this is the approach that we've taken at Go Vegan World, that we don't show these graphic images, or when we do, we're very judicious in the way that we use them. So we don't show the blood and gore. What we show is the emotional expression of the individual on the receiving end of it. And in doing so, we've left the industry and the consumer alike with nowhere to hide from the moral imperative to be vegan. So there's no escape. The only rational approach is to be vegan. The campaign aim is not for people to go vegan in their own time. From their perspective, while we wait to go vegan, they're being bred and they're being killed. Instead, the campaign asks people to go vegan now, but you know, it's not a dictatorship. We don't do it in a dictatorship way. We do it in a way that makes veganism appear very easy, because it is very easy. And we certainly recognise that for some people veganism presents difficulty. So the campaign aims to be part of the solution so that everyone is enabled to go vegan, regardless of demographics, employment or any other obstacle that people believe prevents them from being vegan. And increasingly, farmers who have seen our ads have approached us for help to extricate themselves from the industry. So, you know, if it can have that appeal to somebody who's earning their livelihood, you know, really, if we're to examine what's going on in the world, how many of the human population are malnourished or hungry or dying of starvation. I walked here today and I saw, I mean, I was frozen. I had to go back and put more clothes on to get here. And I see people sleeping on the streets. And yet, what excuse do you hear from people that they can't go vegan? They can't go vegan because they love cheese, or they can't get the cosmetics they like. It's, you know, we're very spoiled and irrational. Because of my fortune in getting to know them at Eden, the campaign has facilitated the animals themselves to be the spokespersons for their rights. And in any group, certainly in the profession that I work in, it's great for us to have experts who are users of our services. So people who've been, who've attended maybe psychiatric hospitals as an inpatient, or been in therapy for a while, that they come along and they're experts in dictating and helping us to treat them. So that's a little bit akin to the model that I've used here. Every time I meet a traumatized resident as they arrive at Eden, every time I witness the richness of non-human life, every time I fall in love with one of them and then hold their dying bodies as they struggle to hold on to their only precious life, I'm more and more convinced of the need to expand the ethical backbone of the animal rights movement. And I'll tell you, when I go back upstairs, having lost one of them, as a direct result of being bred into a life where they're imprisoned in their own selectively bred bodies, where they've died despite the best medical care that we can give them at a sanctuary, and I see people on social media talking about food, I'm raging. I'm raging. And if you're one of those people that posts all day long about food, I'm asking you on their behalf to stop. Stop. Go and learn something about the history of the animal rights movement. Go and learn something about the animals that you're advocating for. Go and meet one of them and talk about them. And stop talking about something that doesn't matter. I'm convinced that we need more ethical vegans who are animal focused and go out and talk about this for the absolute tragedy that it is. A completely unnecessary tragedy. It's a social justice issue, and we need to stop pretending that veganism is difficult or that it's about us. When we do so, we completely underestimate the capacity of the people we're talking to. And everybody that you're out there talking to is just like you were before you went vegan. A non-violent, sensitive, caring person. And they just need the right information from you, and they need to see a little bit of your passion for them to go vegan. It just takes a little bit of a switch in the tactics that you might be using. And if I sound very critical, I appreciate that people are talking about food because they want to make this attractive, and they're reading all this shit that's passing itself off as research that says, oh, if you talk about cupcakes, you'll encourage people to go vegan. Well, I'm telling you, I'm working for over 20 years with the human mind, and that's not how the human mind works. We also need to stop making activism about us. This time, it's their turn, and unless we're gracious enough to step aside and put them first, their struggle will always be a struggle, and we will never get the end goal of their freedom from our oppression. So I'm going back now to the structure of the campaign. The campaign uses a variety of different materials to transmit the Go Vegan World message to the public. They include outdoor advertising, television, social media, and newspaper ads, as well as international sports events. And I've used such a variety of formats because I've been very lucky that some of the countries I worked in had really nice advertising. And it's reached such a wide audience that the ads have really very much fulfilled their aim, which is just normalising the concept of veganism, putting the animals out there to be seen for who they are instead of what we're used to. We walk along the street and we see a cartoon figure of a fish or a cow and holding their hand out with a plate of their own sliced body, or sometimes, with a knife, holding slices of their own sliced muscle tissue that's just been cut with a knife, or the worst of all, the laughing cow. Whoever thought of that? Whoever thought of that knew that they were causing the worst grief on this planet, and we all believed them. And the ads have also allowed the public to meet the real-life victims of a non-vegan lifestyle in these ads that are absolutely unavoidable. So a lot of people find the bathroom advertising very funny. I do myself. But it's cheap advertising and it's very effective. That kind of advertising, or advertising at a bus shelter, has what we call a high dwell time. So people have time to read text. Everything else you can only have, between 5 and 7 words, because people are rushing past. So they're only getting a sense, a flavour of, a glimpse of the animal and maybe the logo, which is also the website. But in the ads where there's a high dwell time, they have time to read and absorb the message. The ads themselves are only the tip of the iceberg of the campaign. So people often say to me, can I do a campaign like that in my own town? Imagining, as I might have a few years ago, that it's only a case of sticking the ads up. A decade of research has gone into this, so it's more complicated than the ads. Go Vegan World would also prefer to expand the Go Vegan World campaign rather than starting from scratch and wasting resources in doing what we've already done. So unless there's a large, well-informed, solid structure behind the campaign with this clear abolitionist message, ads can actually be a waste of money, and they can be detrimental to the message that we're trying to give. A lot of the work that supports the ads in Go Vegan World takes place behind the scenes. Most of it does, in fact. And the campaign includes lectures like this one, street education, speaking at conferences, and a huge amount of online support and individual support through emails. The campaign is also supported by the Vegan Guide, which, as I said, is free to download and freely available to activists around the world who want to use it in their own advocacy, as long as they're willing to work with us with the way that we want to do our activism. And of course, the campaign is supported by a very comprehensive website, so we're able to say to people, go out there and research this issue yourself. And the website links to to the best of the resources that I've been able to come across, and I update it as much as I can. And of course, the media interest through the radio, the newspaper, the radio, and the television interviews. So I just want to say something about that while I'm on that point, because I think it's very close to a lot of our hearts at the moment, because of certainly in Europe, because of the style of activism. How we conduct ourselves in public and in the media is really very, very important, because we're going out there and we're representing the face of the social justice movement for countless numbers of animals every year. Veganism is a non-violent philosophy. It's part of the peace movement. It's the moral conviction that it's wrong to harm others. So we need to embody that, so that's in the very way that we conduct ourselves. That's the message that we're giving to people, so that we embody that vision of peace and equality and rationality. We need to be very careful about the language that we use, so that we don't alienate people listening to us who potentially might be very interested in what we have to say, but you just use the wrong word and you've suddenly alienated a very large group of people. when I first ran Go Vegan World, for example, I was talking to a journalist one day about not only the dairy industry, because it happens, right across the board. It happens in the flesh industry with pigs. It happens in the flesh industry with turkeys. They're all artificially inseminated. And I was describing the process of artificial insemination, and I used the phrase, if we did this to a human, it would be called rape. And they jumped on it. The media jumped on it, and I've always regretted using that word. It doesn't matter whether we think it's rape or not. If you use a word like that, it can be offensive to a very large number of people who are interested in human rights, who may be victims of rape themselves. We see other animals as our equals. We didn't always see other animals as our equals, and the people that we're talking to don't see them as our equals. So we can very accurately describe the process, and we don't have to be graphic and violent in our description of it. We can rationally describe that process and give the message across without using a word that alienates people. And in the case in Ireland, the media jumped on this word and they used it as a hook to try and hang the campaign on, to say that I was extreme or that the campaign was extreme. So I would find myself on radio or doing a newspaper interview trying to describe some very rational elements of animal rights, and they'd say, oh, you're the one that called it rape. So I no longer use that word. I would say the same about, referring to what we do to other animals as the Holocaust. When we call when we call the humans who are paid by the animal exploiting industries, who we used to pay when we put our hands in our pockets and paid for all the products that we used to pay for, when we call them rapists and murderers, we've alienated people. We've alienated them. Instead of reaching out and trying to get a common understanding, we're all in this together. A lot of what we do to other animals is reverberation. There are important intersectional aspects to this. I don't go overboard on it in the Go Vegan World campaign because my focus is the animals, but it is there. I don't ignore it. So it's really important that we think. I'm always thinking, have I made a mistake? Have I done this wrong? Have I done that wrong? I personally suffer because that's the kind of person I am. But I think that the campaign benefits from that. And in the morning, if I found that Go Vegan World wasn't working, believe me, I'd drop it. I would drop it straight away. We can only do what we know is working to help them. So we need to continually revise what we're doing. It's also very important that we're absolutely accurate in what we're saying. So we have to keep reading and researching what we're talking about. If we say something that's inaccurate, they're going to rubbish every single thing that we say. And unfortunately, a lot of activists don't understand the intricacies of animal agriculture. So we need to go out and research it. We need to research what, animals used in research, all forms of animal use, so that we're fully au fait with what's happening and that we can fully substantiate everything we say. Go Vegan World has been taken to task on many, many occasions by the legal authorities. The Advertising Standards Authority publication is the one that's very known, but believe me, there are many behind the scenes. The campaign's still running because I've been able to substantiate every word of our ads. Those of you who work as advocates for the rights of other animals will be familiar with a range of difficult emotions, such as feeling angry, feeling overwhelmed, frustrated, helpless, hopeless, and even traumatized. I work individually with many people in the movement who are suffering from burnout and PTSD. Let me say to you, the animal rights movement is no place for emotional catharsis, and the animals need more from us than that. If you're one of those people who's suffering because of your activism, and it's very understandable that you would be, there's no harm in taking a break. There's no crime whatsoever in taking a break and getting yourself the appropriate help that you need and the space to feel. In fact, you owe it to the animals to do that. if you're burned out, you can't be effective. And I have personal experience several times because of working at the coalface of animal rights activism, working on a sanctuary and numerous other places where I've seen, the stuff of nightmares. If we don't heal ourselves, we're no use to them. So if you need help, contact me or somebody like me. Contact a like-minded friend and just put a little bit of distance between you and the type of activism you were doing, or maybe reconsider the type of activism you were doing. I know what happens other animals. I don't need to keep watching it over and over again and re-traumatizing myself. I don't think any of us do. There is no obligation on you, regardless of what others might say to you. If you're vegan and you're an activist, you don't have to keep going back there watching this same stuff over and over and over again. Again, I'm back to talking about the structure and execution of the campaign. I design the ads and I source all the design materials myself, and I want to give a shout out today to Agatha Kissel, the campaign photographer, because she, I was taking photographs for years. The first movie that I made, You Haven't Lived Until You've Hugged a Turkey. I had a 2 megapixel camera on my mobile phone, and we were running that sanctuary out of stuff that other people were throwing in skips. We had nothing. But Agatha came along with her fantastic camera and her wonderful eye, and she took these fantastic photographs of the residents of Eden that have featured in so many of the ads, not this one, but in so many of the ads, and brought those animals right out onto the streets, and they have made history. Those residents of Eden have made history by going out there and showing the world who they are and what they want from us. So the reason that in many ways I'm very controlling of the campaign, and that's why I still have this campaign, and that's why it's so true to the message. The ads are also legally protected so that the message can't be diluted. So while the ads can be shared on social media, and I would encourage you, please share them, because every time you share an ad, it's free advertising for us. But they can't be copied or altered or used by any other individual in their own activism or any other organisation in their own activism, because we don't want the message diluted. We want this to stay a strong and true message. The ads are designed to be colourful and attract people so that their eyes are drawn towards them, and then they're accompanied by this headline that confronts us with the absolute injustice of our use of them. This ad in particular has been very effective. The campaign design also uses repetition, because this is one of the most successful aspects of advertising. So the ads, for instance, are placed in a city area where people are seeing them when they walk to work or when they walk through a city to catch a train or a bus. Then the same ads are on the railway or the bus station platforms. They're in the public transport bathrooms. Then they're also inside the buses or the trains. Then that same group of commuters is targeted online. So when they turn on their mobile phones and they're on Facebook or social media or whatever, they see the same ad again. So in this way, veganism and animal rights are becoming normalised, and the chances that those people will get that message are greatly enhanced. The campaign targets all forms of animal use by humans. So we have ads that target the entertainment industry, several of them actually, animals used in clothing, animals used in research, animals used for all the different food items that we use. But we give the heaviest weight to dairy and eggs, because they're the industries that are so hidden. We also have ads that target fishes, because of fishes and chickens are the groups that are killed quantitatively in the largest numbers. But we're also careful to use ads that people will relate to. People actually relate very well to pigs. They relate less well to chickens and fishes. So the ads where where people relate to the animals, they're the ones where we talk about sentience and personhood. The campaign targets standard practice and animal use rather than speaking about cruelty and abuse. virtually everyone, including vivisectors and farmers, are against what they call animal abuse. But most people consuming animal flesh, fish, eggs and cheese, people wearing leather and wool, people purchasing products that were tested on other animals, people who are bringing their children to the zoo or the aquarium, they're not aware of the injustice and harm that their choices inflict on others. Although we appreciate that a reduction in animal use is certainly better than an increase in animal use, and that reduced animal use is certainly better for the intersectional ideas of human health and the environment, this is not a rational approach to animal justice. When we reduce our use of other animals instead of being vegan, real lives are affected. In this photo are Emily, Charlotte and George at Eden. The idea that reduced animal use helps them means that they're still viewed as food, as an object of human use instead of a sentient being. And it means that at least one of them will be killed. In order to be consistent when rationalising a reducitarian approach, what you would need to do is show a picture like this to somebody who thinks that this approach is very useful and ask them, look at them, look them in the eye and pick one of them to kill. If you're an activist and you approach less animal use instead of the complete abolition of animal use, then you too are faced with this choice. You need to look at this photograph and you need to pick who you're not going to advocate for. So don't worry about having to make veganism attractive to other people. Believe me, non-violence is already attractive to other people. And if you talk about it in these terms, I mean, who's going to go out there and say, we want lots of war? Who's going to go out there and say, I want everybody out there to be hurt, or I want to be hurt myself? We don't. We don't think that violence is a good thing. And if you can encourage people to empathise with other animals by talking about viewing them through the lens of similarity, the fact that they are sentient like us, they have 2 eyes and a nose and a mouth and 2 ears, they have the same central nervous system as us, they're capable of feeling pain, they're capable of experiencing positive emotions like joy, they're conscious of what happens in them, and we've incontrovertible scientific evidence. Go and find that evidence and have it in your back pocket when you're advocating. Incontrovertible scientific evidence that they're sentient, that they can feel, that they've an interest in their own lives, they've an interest in continuing to die. There isn't one single one of them jumping for joy into the slaughterhouse. That's all you need. That's all you need to make veganism attractive. This is Claudia. She was rescued from the egg industry. And Claudia valued her life just as much as Emily, George and Charlotte still value theirs. If we imagine that vegetarianism is the equivalent of veganism, some hen somewhere will die so that the world can consume her eggs. So please never ever ask people to go veg or vegetarian. The word is vegan. Vegan has a non-violent philosophy and meaning attached to it that you can explain to people. A hen like Claudia will be slaughtered at 18 months when her lifespan as a wild, free animal in the jungles of Southeast Asia where wild chickens still live would have been at least 12 years. And this is true whether she lives on a factory farm or a free range or an organic farm. So there's no need to talk in your advocacy about factory farms. We need to talk about animal use, viewing other animals as our property, viewing them as objects, viewing them as our food instead of as sentient beings. The same fate awaited Missy and her friends before they arrived at Eden about a year ago. These are the victims of the Irish free-range egg industry, and we don't have this right to inflict this on anyone. And if you're advocating and you're confusing vegetarianism with veganism, then you are doing the same thing as the person who goes into the supermarket and pays for free-range or organic chickens or organic eggs, thinking that they're doing something to help. If you're advocating for veg diet or a vegetarian diet, this is what you're causing. This is what you're responsible for. And you need to look at this and you need to face up to it. When we speak about vegetarianism instead of veganism, we're responsible for someone like Missy, who came from a free-range farm that carried a glossy label and commanded a high price for her eggs. And I remember when I was fooled into thinking that I was doing something good by buying them. So if I sound very critical, I'm critical of who I used to be. And I just wish that I'd known this. I just wish that I had seen a Go Vegan World ad, or that somebody had told me. The ads are designed around several core themes, which I'll outline by illustration. The ads illustrate that the animals we use are conscious of what happens to them, and that in all the ways that matter, they're just like us. So when we talk about animal rights, we're not talking about the right to vote or the right to go to school. We're talking about the fundamental right not to be used or harmed. The animals in the ads are represented as individuals whose lives matter to them, individuals who experience feelings and who are harmed at an individual level by our use of them, because we're so used to seeing a sea of animals that we relate to by group or species or by their usefulness to us as humans, that we can't see who they are or how our use of them is so unjust. It was really only when I got to know them as individuals at Eden that I could see how much they matter. And this is what I tried to convey in the ads through the Go Vegan World campaign, to make it easier for people on the street to see them for who they are. The campaign also addresses the theme of the preciousness of life. I've been running Eden for almost a decade, since the first spring lambs came to us in 2008, and I still can't get my head around the fact that the sheep who've lived here, like this sheep in this photograph, Willow, the sheep who've lived at Eden since that time, almost 10 years ago, they wouldn't exist if Eden hadn't existed. They would have gone into a slaughterhouse and been killed, and nobody would remember. Nobody would even remember that they ate that dinner 10 years ago. And this person, who has a distinct personality at Eden, who, when she sees you, very slowly and gracefully gets up off her feet and comes over to greet you, who has special friends that she likes at Eden, and who has a whole complexity of thought and feeling and interest in her own life, she wouldn't exist. Like the 74 billion others who we breed and kill every year. And that's just land animals. The same for the turkeys. These turkeys, when you go out in the morning and they come running to you for a hug, and every year they get slower and slower as their selectively bred bodies get bigger and give them joint problems, and they still, despite the arthritis and the joint problems they suffer, they still come running to us for a hug. And you can see that they valued their lives so much. They would have lost those lives for a quickly forgotten Christmas dinner last year. And in fact, based on our experience in Ireland, their bodies would have ended up in people's dustbins. Not that it matters, when they were bred and killed their lives anyway, killed and lost their lives anyway. Or that this baby, with his very complex need for love and his rich, intelligent personality, he was bred as a micro pig to live as a decoration in someone's handbag. And when he got too big, he was sent to us. His teeth had been taken out, like most of the pigs that we breed for their skin or their flesh. So I try to convey in the ads how precious life is to the individual living that life, and how violently and needlessly we take their lives from them. Anybody who knows anything about bullying, anyone who has ever been a bully or been the victim of bullying, only needs to look at this to see that that's what we do to them. We bully them because we can, because we're more powerful than them. We even bully huge, powerful, magnificent animals like cows and elephants. And that is despicable. And that's why it takes courage to be vegan, because we have to look in the mirror and think about who we are and what we do. And that's not easy. That's the challenge of veganism. The challenge of veganism is not where do I get vegan cheese, what milk will I use in my coffee, where, you know, what clothes can I wear, what mattress can I buy, what kind of a sofa will I have in my house. You know, it doesn't matter if I have a car that has leather seats in it, I have a very bad headache, you know, is it okay to take a painkiller that was tested on other animals? That's not what veganism is about. This is what veganism is about. Facing up to who we are and what we're capable and what we've done, and stopping it and living our lives as best we can and not harming anyone. And finally, the ads are designed to show who the animals were before we turned them into those objects or ingredients by juxtaposing these two images together. It's difficult to quantify the results of Go Vegan World. I think the most important aspect is that the truth is exposed in such a public and a wide-reaching manner, and that people are prompted by the ads to think about the animals we use. I'm hoping to embark on a formal research study to estimate the campaign effectiveness. And actually, at the conference at Brock University where I spoke yesterday, someone did a presentation on veganism and animal rights activism in Ireland, and she showed, I think it was an 830 or 850% increase in the mention of veganism and animal rights in Irish media since we started this campaign. There's a decrease in the mention of those words in America. Even though we think that everyone's talking about veganism, they're not. That's why it's so important for us to step out of our activist shoes and walk back out into those shoes of the people on the streets and see what is it that they're picking up, and is what we're doing effective. Because we can get very ingrained in our own tiny world, and it is a tiny, incestuous world at the moment, because there not a lot of people are vegan, and of those vegans, not a lot of them are activists. So we have to be really careful about what we're doing and try our best to measure it. So I've built some measures into the campaign design so we could get quantitative results. We do have very rich qualitative information from the people who contact us and tell us about specific ads they saw that made them go vegan. They trust us, we butcher them. Has been very effective. They trust us, we take them from their mothers and butcher them with a dairy ad, and dairy takes babies. That's really, really effective. Not only that, not only people who've gone vegan, people who have gone home and talked to their families and the whole family have gone vegan, or people that write to us going back 2 or 3 years who saw these ads, researched the information for themselves, went vegan and became animal rights activists. But I've also built some measures into the campaign design so that we could get some quantitative results. I mean, vegan education is pioneering. We're really in the early stages of this, and it's very difficult to get verifiable material. So I'm not going to come out here today and give you a load of statistics and say that these are right. For instance, some of the measures that we've built in is the traffic to the website, the number of vegan guides downloaded or sent out in hard copy, and the interest generated on media and social media. But I could give you some nice flashy figures, but we don't know whether they are other interested vegans that are having a look at this stuff. I know for a fact that the industry are having a look at this material. So that, you know, there are confounding principles that are interfering at the moment with understanding quantitatively how Go Vegan World is working. But we do know that when the campaign is live on the streets, or that there's something newsworthy in the media, there's a big increase in website traffic and in vegan guide downloads. For instance, just to have a look at some statistics, a year ago we were getting about 5,500 visits to the website a week, and 500 vegan guides were downloaded. Now there's about 40,000 visits a month, and about 7,000 vegan guides are being downloaded. And I send a good few thousand out, sometimes on a weekly basis, sometimes on a monthly basis, to activists around the world who are using them in their own activism. So the good thing is that it's increasing, and it tells us that the campaign is doing what we want it to do. So when there's an increase in traffic because the campaigns are live on the street, and people are seeing the ads and they're going to the website rather than some other resources that we wouldn't have confidence in as being good animal rights and animal justice resources. This tells us that the campaign is doing what we wanted to do. People are seeing the ads and they're coming to us as a resource. And I don't want to sound as if we think we're the best. What's good about the website is that it's linking. It's linking to credible, scientific and good other animal rights resources. The reaction to the campaign obviously hasn't all been positive. In fact, it has really got under the skin of the industry in Ireland and the UK. As I mentioned, the ads have been torn down off the streets in Ireland. Behind the scenes, believe you me, the industries have done their best to shut this campaign down. They've tried on several occasions to shut it down. But it certainly has achieved its aim of putting animal rights and veganism very firmly on the agenda. The fact that veganism is being discussed on high-profile current affairs programmes in Ireland is indicative of how seriously it's been taken. Now, the manner in which the topic is being discussed in the media leaves an awful lot to be desired. The media have done their best to set this up as an anti-farming or even an anti-dairy campaign. It absolutely is not. I mean, nobody will support farmers more than animal rights activists and vegan educators. It's not. The campaign is targeted at consumers because it's consumers who are looking at other animals as objects of human use and going into the shops and paying for the products that cause so many of them to be bred and killed for our use every year and imprisoned and in laboratories and zoos and aquariums and what have you. So it's, you know, we're still having to defend the same old useless questions over again. You know, on this show I was asked, you know, the fact that dogs look out the windows, does that not mean that they have no intelligence? Or, you know, do plants not have feelings too? And very much trying to set it up as a Barney and a fight on radio between this campaign and farmers. Having said that, on the whole, the campaign has been very positively received by the public. When the words that ring in my ears continually when I'm talking to people are that I didn't know. They're becoming aware of information that they either didn't know or didn't care about. So, you know, dairy takes babies from their mothers, the fact that male chicks in the egg industry are killed at birth, as well as the manner in which they're killed by suffocation or being ground alive. The fact that other animals feel. A lot of people don't know that other animals can feel. They might know it, you know, because they do know if they step on the dog's tail at home that the dog cries and feels pain. But they don't think about that in respect to the mice that we use in research, or the cows that we use for dairy, or the pigs and cows and chickens that we use for flesh. They're just not on their radar. It wasn't on my radar until I got to know them. A lot of people are willing to go vegan, and there's a certain percentage of the public out there. They are the change makers. They're the people that are interested in social justice issues and ethics. They're the people to go for initially, because once we do this, other people who are more followers will just follow them, and our laws will change. The ways in which we think about other animals will change. The school curriculum for children will change, so that we have courses on animal rights and animal sentience. Animal sentience will be included in biology classes. I think that's the way it's going to work. So that's what Go Vegan World targets. So people are definitely willing, and there's certainly a percentage who are more than willing to think about these issues and open to them. The problem is that people are not being asked to go vegan. People are not being asked to consider animal rights. They're being asked to think about animal welfare and better treatment. They're being asked to think about single, isolated issues, divorced from the whole problem, which is our species' view of other animals. I mean, I see people doing fur campaigns, greyhound racing, the use of animals in circuses, or the use of wild animals in circuses. I heard recently somebody campaigning against the use of family pets in research, as if the mouse doesn't feel the same. as the dog. I know it's very sad. I know it's dreadful. And if it was the animal that you know at home and that you love, who was used in research, you'd be outraged. But to campaign for that, and not to campaign for vivisection, to campaign against vivisection, and not campaign under an umbrella, a vegan umbrella, and talk about animal rights, this, I'm sorry, it does not make any sense to me. And I have proved with Go Vegan World that if you use this rational approach, you'll get there. People are being sold the myth of humane animal products instead of being educated about veganism. And they're being exposed to the message that veganism is about animal flesh, instead of the message that veganism is about respecting other life and avoiding all forms of animal use, whether it's for entertainment or clothing or research or labour as well as food. And if we claim to represent other animals, then we don't have the right to ask for anything less than veganism and their rights. We've demonstrated with Go Vegan World that when we shift this focus from all these ancillary issues onto this important issue of animal rights, that we can get a positive response and the change we're looking for. So before I take questions, and your questions are very, very welcome, and if there's anything I've said that you disagree with, please confront me with it, and I'll discuss it with you. And I'm also open to change, to some things. And so before we go on to the question and answer session, maybe we've addressed the volume issue there, and I'm going to leave you with some scenes from Go Vegan World as it unfolded over the last 3 years, with my greatest wish that this and all our efforts, because everybody who's here today is working for other animals because they care, so that all our efforts will move us closer to a world where the issue of the fight for animal rights will be well in the past. Okay.
I wanna see the world united and learn to live as one. I wanna see the world united, learn to live as one. I wanna see the world united, learn to live as one. I wanna see the world united, learn to live as one. Zala ke yando istengeli na bato bakufela bitumba. Zongisa ke yando na mituna ya bato bakufela nzala. Zala ke yando kokit na bato bakufela bitumba. Zongisa ke yando istengeli na bato bakufela nzala. We have to bring the world together and learn to live as one. We have to bring the world together, learn to live as one. El instante lo que cuenta, vive sonriendo hasta el final, pero vendrán días de alegría que nadie puede creer.
World together and learn to live as one. We have to bring the world together, learn to live as one.
beautiful picture, and thank you all for turning up and listening to me today. So I'm very happy to take your questions. I think we have a roving mic.
There it is, but it's not working.
Oh, it's not, oh, okay. Yeah.
You can put your hand up.
Yeah.
And Sandra, if you could repeat.
I'll repeat the question. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for this. We have a recent legislation here in Toronto on certain districts, like in 4 districts, I believe.
Oh, thanks.
That's going to be a hen pilot where people are allowed to keep up to 4 hens in their backyards.
Yeah.
For their eggs.
Yeah,
for their
yeah.
eggs. And how can we approach this? What would you suggest?
It's very important to, when you're doing your activism, as I explained in the campaign, not to focus on factory farming, but the fact that the animals that we use as food are selectively bred in ways that greatly alters them from their true natural status. So in the wild, a hen, a chicken hen who produces eggs, is just like any other bird, a wild bird, like a crow or a robin, and they only lay enough eggs to hatch their young. So they're only laying between 10 and 30 eggs a year to hatch their young. The hens that we know who lay an egg every day do so they've been selectively bred. And it's particularly important to, the Women's March is going on today. So a huge amount of the exploitation that happens in the industry, particularly the animal agricultural industry, is based on this absolute violation of the reproductive systems of females. So if a hen laying an egg every day, it's the equivalent of a human woman giving birth every day. I mean, she's laying this huge. It's huge in comparison to her body. You know, sometimes those eggs can be up to 1/3 of the size of the chicken's body, and they're heavy. It puts a huge strain on her. The secondary effects of laying an egg every day include osteoporosis, fractures, lung diseases, infection, peritonitis, when sometimes the egg actually cracks inside the body, and if the egg yolk comes in contact with the abdomen, it sets up an infection that's very, very serious, usually fatal. They prolapse just like a human woman would if she was giving birth all the time. And what most people don't realise is the rate of cancer in egg-laying hens is 100%. So most egg-laying hens, if they live long enough, will either die with cancer or from cancer. In fact, because it's prolific among egg-laying hens, they're used as a model in laboratories to study ovarian cancer in humans. And this is where the crime is. Selectively breeding their bodies because we look on their eggs as our food, and their eggs are not their food. They're part of their reproductive system that continues their existence on this planet. So if you can have a leaflet like that, or use some of the Go Vegan World leaflets, refer people to that section on our website that explains that. It's great to rescue hens. It's wonderful to get to know them. Your back garden, might not be the best place to have them because it takes a good structure to keep them safe. They need adequate space and they need fencing from predators. And because they're selectively bred to lay eggs every day, they're all going to get sick. They're all going to die at a very early age. So the veterinary care bills at Eden for the hens are one of the most expensive bills that we have. And the only way that we can cope is when we get them in from the egg-laying industry, is to give them implants to stop them laying eggs, and that's greatly improved their health. But they still die, and that's very expensive, and very few people rescuing a few hens to have in their back garden, the micro-sanctuary type method. Very few people are able to afford that. Yes, go ahead. Yeah, the question, yeah. That's right, yeah, and there can be freak issues where a few days later they're laying eggs again, or even a month later they're laying eggs again. So, yeah, it's expensive and it's not the ideal solution. Yes, another question.
What's it cost
yeah, the question is, you know, is it a very expensive campaign, and how have I pulled it off? I'm very fortunate that I have like-minded people who share my vision for animal justice and for a vegan world, who funded it. Having said that, yes, it is very expensive. You know, I'm spending money that I would never have had access to prior to running the campaign, but I'm doing it on the cheap, so I negotiate the ads right down as cheap as I can get. In fact, some people have said that I can come and work for them as a negotiator. You know, if you get, sometimes a company books a big campaign, and then at the last minute they pull out for some reason. So rather than lose money, the company will sell it at fairly cost price. I use a lot of that. But then if I'm structuring a big campaign, which I've done several times, I'll book that 3 to 6 months in advance, because then I'm getting exactly the ads I want, and then I can use the cheaper ads as big fillers. What's wonderful about this campaign is it's not a big organisation, because all those other big organisations, and I don't mind saying it in public, they've had this money, they've had 10 times the money that I have, and they've had it long before I went vegan, long before I had a sanctuary, and long before I ever thought of running an ad on a bus anywhere, and they didn't do this, and they could have done this, and they're still not doing it. And if they do it, they're carrying a message that's not helpful.
Thank you. The other thing, because I understand that I sent in donations to you. I think I was one of the first ones who got some of those beautiful humane and then bumper stickers.
Oh, yeah.
The donations and stuff. So I know that the donations for the products that I ordered from Go Vegan will go to the sanctuary.
Yeah.
So I wasn't under the understanding that money was going towards the campaign. So bravo to these like-minded people, and bravo
Yeah.
how this is being done, because this is one of the most powerful campaigns. And thank you.
I mean, like I said, it's nothing to do with me. I'm just a mouthpiece for the animals. It's their campaign. It is a good campaign, but it's good because of them. And anytime I'm stuck or disheartened, I go out to the sanctuary, and I soon find an answer by being with them and by researching their issues. So the question was about the donations. There's no donate button on Go Vegan World. Not that we don't need money. The more money we have, the better campaign that we can run. And it takes the pressure off the very tiny number of people who are donating to it. But I didn't want to confuse the message. So Go Vegan World has one crystal clear message. It's your right to know this, and it's your responsibility to act on it. Whereas if we also had, please give us money, that dilutes the message. It loses its integrity. And that's been a difficult decision for me to make, because everything's moved along a little bit slower than it could have otherwise. But it's a decision that I'm very glad to make. But if anybody does want to donate, the donations can be made to EdenFarmedAnimalSanctuary.com. And we're very grateful to receive them. Yes, another question? Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, if you get in touch with me, the question is, how can I get my car wrapped with the ad? Wrapped cars are great advertising, Yeah, if you get in touch with me at info@goveganworld.com, I'll certainly arrange to have that done. It's great to get people brave enough to carry the ads. Yeah. Okay, that's great. Yeah. I see. All right. Yeah. Yes. Go ahead.
How to phrase this exactly? It's wonderful that you're getting people to realize the animal justice issue, the justice part of this, and encouraging people to go vegan. How do we ensure, in your mind, how do we ensure that people stay? Is it enough to simply change their paradigm, their view of the world, or do they need more to stay vegan?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Question is, the campaign's great because it's focused on animal justice, but how can we ensure that people who go vegan stay vegan? And my answer to that is, once you're vegan for life, because it absolutely changes who you are. The psychological structure of your life is radically and utterly changed in a way that I can only compare to my field of expertise, which is psychological trauma. And when somebody is traumatized, the ground is absolutely pulled from under your feet. Everything you believed about this world as a safe, benign place is shattered. Your mind, the psychological structure of your mind and how you think and how you feel is broken into a million pieces. And that is what happens when we face what we're doing to other animals. And it radically changes who you are. So veganism is not about your behavior. It's not about the fact that, you know, we insist when we travel that there's no feathers in the duvets on the beds, and we'll go out of our way and we'll go hungry rather than eat something that had an animal in it. That's not what veganism is about. Veganism is about having the moral conviction that it's wrong to harm others. It's about how we relate to other species in radically different ways to what we did before. And actually, I would love to move this on, that we relate to them in radically different ways to what we're even calling at the moment, because the more we learn about their sentience and their complexity, the more they can fill us with awe, because they're complex in ways that we are not. I think, based on my study of it, that they probably feel way more intensely than we do, because their sentience is different, because it's more expanded than ours is. So you can't be a vegan today and not a vegan tomorrow, which is why I object to campaigns that ask people to be vegan for a month, go vegan for January, or go vegan for Lent. First of all, this is presented on a restrictive model, you know, such as giving up alcohol for a month, or giving up meat on Fridays, or giving up confectionery for 4 or 6 weeks prior to Easter. Veganism is not restrictive; it's expansive. We're bringing all these other beings who matter just as much as we do into our circle of moral consideration. We're opening our eyes to who they are. That's expansive. You know, what are we doing without? What are we doing without? Violence, something that didn't belong to us in the first place, something that isn't what we think it is, because you go into a supermarket and you buy a piece of meat and you think it's food. That's not food. That's not food. That's the muscle tissue of somebody who lived. That's a piece of leg that person needed to jump and walk and go over to their mother or go over to their friend and say hello to them, or, you know, jump on with all 4 legs in the air at the same time. That's what that is. That's not food. So I hope that answers your question. You can't be vegan today and not vegan tomorrow.
So, okay, I mean, that was too fine a point on it, but basically you're saying is ditch the rest of the message and go just focus on that one thing would be what you would recommend.
Yes, the question is what I'm saying. Ditch all the other forms of activism and all the other messages and just go for broke, go for animal rights and veganism. And I'm saying yes. And the reason I'm saying yes is life is short. Your life as an activist is short, especially if you're doing very intense activism and you run the risk of burning out. The resources we have in terms of time, money, energy, they're short. So we need to maximise what we're doing to achieve our goal. And with any behavioural change, you have to look at the end goal. What is it we want? Do we want people to stop wearing fur and not give a fuck that they're going around with leather shoes on their feet? I mean, what sense does that make? And the people that we are talking to can see through that. They can see that doesn't make any sense. That's why the minute you go on a television programme, I mean, I go on a television programme with my docs on me, and the first thing they'll say is, oh, I'm sure those shoes are leather. That's our fault. That's our fault, because we're not giving a strong and sincere and consistent rational message with the end goal in mind. So it's economical in terms of all the resources we have, and it's rational and it's sincere. It's doing something that the animals need. You see, I always say, do your activism by swapping places with them. And if you were a cow, if you were a dairy cow, would you thank somebody for concentrating all their activism on fur? You wouldn't, because you'd say, well, I'm being used for my milk here. I'm losing all my babies. I'm going to lose, at least 4 babies before I'm killed and go through all that torture of being a dairy cow. And then I'm going to be killed so I can be ground up for a burger, and somebody's going to take my skin and use it to wear on their feet. So fur has nothing to do with me. Whereas, how would you relate as a dairy cow to somebody who's doing vegan education, who's talking about other animals as our sentient equals, who's giving the end goal as animal rights and the path to animal rights as veganism? And veganism is the moral conviction that it's wrong to harm other animals for our use, and that we don't need to buy into this.
I have a question.
Yes.
I do activism, and especially in Toronto, it's everywhere, and we find that sometimes vegans now think that it's okay to wear fur, so how is that?
So the question is from somebody who runs an anti-fur campaign here in Toronto, and you're saying that some vegans think it's okay to wear fur.
It's starting to get that way because fur is endemic in the Toronto region, and it's starting to be in Canada. Companies like Canada Goose sprung all sorts of other companies, so fur trim is everywhere. And just the other day I came across a vegan who was wearing a full fur jacket.
So this person is saying that she came across a vegan recently who's wearing a full fur jacket, and the reason that vegans think it's okay to wear fur is because fur is endemic. So there's no excuse to use another animal. I was cold here today, and I went back to the hotel and I got my thermal vest and I got my warmer coat. I didn't have to wear a fur coat. I didn't have to take someone's life. I didn't have to trap them in a cage and torture them and put them through anal electrocution so that I could be warm. There's never an excuse for using another animal. There are very few of us on a desert island situation with nothing to wear and nothing to eat, and even if we were, the question is what are you going to do? Kill somebody else or die? It's probably more moral to die yourself. So you're not vegan. If you wear the skin or the fur or the feathers of another animal, you're not vegan. And I'd say something else. How dare you call yourself vegan? Another question.
There are people that say if they buy stuff that's used, then they're not responsible. Therefore, it's okay. What would you say to those people?
Yeah, there are people who say if you buy something second-hand that's already used, then they're not responsible for the exploitation of the other animal. How do I feel about that? I always find it really useful to say, well, let's swap places with the animals. And let's say that it was human skin that you were wearing. And this happened after the Holocaust. The lamps were made from the skins of humans. You'd feel very uncomfortable. You'd feel very uncomfortable. So if you want to buy something used, why not buy something that didn't come from another animal? Now, this question often comes up with new vegans. We were the same, when we first went vegan. There are a lot of things hanging around your house that are non-vegan. So, the very first thing that we did was we cleared out the cupboards and the fridges and threw everything away. But there might be leather seats in your car, or you might have a lot of leather shoes and woolen jumpers. You can wear them out. But the next time you're buying something, you're not buying into an industry that exploits somebody else. But I do think that it's good to come to a stage where you can say to yourself, I just feel really uncomfortable about using that animal's life as something on my feet or on my body or whatever. That is... You could say this is on a continuum, really, because the more we learn about what we do to the other animals, the more entrenched your veganism and your fight for their justice is, and also the more expansive it is, because the more you know about them, the more you realise how wonderful and how much that they have to teach us and how much we have to learn about them. And I think that's what makes you become more and more distant about using any of their lives. in our lives. That's not to say that we're perfect. The very fact that we're human and we live on this planet means at the moment that you can't be a perfect vegan. You can't not harm them, because even our own plant food production is harming a lot of animals. But it would be great to shift this to the stage where we're developing more and more methods of veganic agriculture so that we're not harming them, better alternatives for human medicine so that it's not compulsory that human medicine is tested on other animals. I see that. I wish we could get to that, get over this hump and get to that stage. Yes, another question.
How do you feel about, say, activists or vegans who have animals, say like cats?
Yeah.
Who, I mean, obviously, you feed cat food, it's not vegan, most of it anyway.
Okay. The question is, how do I feel about activists or vegans who have animals like cats or dogs? I have covered that question on the Go Vegan World website, and it's a very interesting question. The first thing we need to do is look at our own behaviour, because we're the one species that's devastating the planet for everybody else, that's killing billions of species every year. Some animals are carnivores, and their behaviour is really outside our control. But in terms of domesticated animals like cats and dogs, and a lot of us have rescued animals like cats and dogs, and we have them at Eden, I think the thing to do is twofold. Look at the scientific evidence from the veterinary industry, because there's a lot of it out there now, on what they need to eat and how you can give them a plant diet and supplement that diet and monitor their urine and keep a veterinary tab on how they're doing to make sure that they stay in good health. And also, the animal themselves will tell you how they're doing, because if they're not doing well on a plant diet, you'll know probably very quickly. Especially with cats, you'll know very quickly. But you also get a very short period of time to intervene, particularly if it's a urinary tract issue. Some animals are doing very well on plant diets. Dogs in particular can do very well on a plant diet. If it happens that the cat that you have is not doing well on a plant diet, if you only have one or two cats, it can be easy to ask the butcher or the fish shop to give you some of the scraps free of charge. And I hate to even talk about it that way, because there are other animals' lives. But unfortunately, we're in this situation where there are an awful lot of unwanted cats and dogs in particular, and we play a good role in rescuing them and giving them a home with us. Yes, Nikki.
Question from someone online.
Okay, yes, good.
Any advice how to grow a small vegan animal sanctuary into something bigger like you?
Oh. The first thing I would say, the question is, any ideas on how to grow a small sanctuary into a big sanctuary like Eden? If you're thinking of running a farmed animal sanctuary, and it's great, we need, we rescue other animals, and we need homes from them. Be very careful to know what you're getting into. And the first thing I would recommend is that you do an internship with an existing and reputable sanctuary, preferably a sanctuary that has the kind of vegan message that Eden has, complete cessation of the use of other animals for human ends. That sanctuary is likely to have a very good care ethic. You need to stay at that sanctuary for the 4 seasons of the year to really get a taste of what it's like to work outside when the place is covered in mud and you're dealing with water shortages and it's very cold and you're trying to do your best to take care of the animals' needs. Eden is not a very big sanctuary. There are just over 100 animals there. I think the most that we had at any one stage was about 150. It's very difficult to get finance. It's very difficult to get the land to run the sanctuary on. It's the most difficult thing of all is to get people to come and help, because nobody wants to come and help. They think they do. And when they get there, they think that running a sanctuary is about hugging the animals. And in our experience, you show them a bucket of water and they run a mile. I'll tell you, running a sanctuary is it's back-breaking work. It's very, very hard work. It's relentless. It's emotionally very taxing, because we see them coming in bits. We fall in love with them and they die. We see what the industry does to them. So you need to be a certain kind of person who's able to rationally care for them, give them the best care possible without becoming overwhelmed either physically or emotionally with this work. And very few people are cut out to do that. But if you're cut out to do that, then that's wonderful, and then you're somebody that I would like to work with. But I don't think that big sanctuaries are a good idea, because I'm always bringing it back to compare it to other humans. And, you know, if your family's too big and you've too many kids, you can't give them the individual care that they need. So at Eden, we know everybody's name. We go out there in the morning, and if there's a sick hen or a sick sheep, we can see them straight away. If you have thousands of animals, I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you can, know 1,000 or 2,000 animals individually by name and know their individual personality and know straight away when you look at them that they're sick. I don't know how that happens unless you have a lot of staff, and the staff are dedicated to the individual groups of animals. So I don't actually think that it's a very good idea to grow a sanctuary very big. But if anybody out there is interested in this, and you're cut out for it, and you're willing to put in the hard work, please write to me, and I'll give you all the support that I can. But I get people asking me this all the time. We want to move to Ireland and open a sanctuary. Well, I'll tell you something here. The sanctuaries that exist in Ireland can't manage, because we've no one to help us. So come and help us first. Come and help us first. Make the ones that exist work. Make them safe places for the animals that we're rescuing. Because if a sanctuary's not safe, where are you going? If you have people running the sanctuary and they don't know what they're at, where are you going? That's not a good place to bring somebody you've rescued. Another question?
I think you said earlier, I'm pretty sure you said this is not anti-farm, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, obviously you describe Ireland and the nature of I would have to think that the agriculture industry sees how their perspective. So what do you mean? Can you expand on that?
Okay, that's an excellent question. What do I mean when I say the Go Vegan World is not an anti-farming campaign? Because in a highly agricultural economy like Ireland, this gentleman is saying, I'm sure from the farmer's perspective, it is anti-farming. I'll tell you why it's not anti-farming. The campaign targets consumers because it's consumers who pay farmers and slaughterhouse workers and vivisectors to work on their behalf, to do a shitty job that none of them would do themselves. It's not anti-farming because it's farming other animals as food is not sustainable. So farmers are engaged in something that can't continue. They're leaving a planet behind that their own children won't be able to live on. They're leaving a legacy of labour behind them that their own children won't be able to work in. So the idea is that vegans will work with farmers to enter a plant-based economy, which will be a secure world for everybody to live in. We get a lot of farmers coming to us at Eden, particularly since we started the campaign, telling us about the trauma that they go through sending the animals to slaughter, or remembering what Ireland was like, the obnoxious things we do, like, call the pig over, the lovely pig that has lived with you for the last few months, call them over and give them a nice dinner, and then stick a knife in their throat when they're busy eating. They grew up as sensitive children seeing this, and they were disgusted and revolted by it, but they desensitised themselves because a lot of them didn't feel they had any other option except to follow in the footsteps of their families and pretend that they were proud about this tradition. Well, none of them, or very few of them, are proud the day that the animals go to slaughter. They don't like that. They're upset that day. We have friends who describe driving after the slaughterhouse truck to take the pet lambs out. But it was okay to send everybody else to slaughter. To go back to the question, the other reason it's not an anti-farming campaign is, a plant-based economy is the future. The writing is on the wall, and the people with their heads screwed on know this, and that's why there's such a huge amount of money going into the plant protein industry. And the big names in this world with big money are putting their money there because they see that this is the future. Who else sees that? The dairy industry see it, and the meat industry see it, because they own a lot of these plant-based food companies. And who's been left behind? The farmers, because they've always been used as cheap labour. They're now being used as the mouthpiece of the industry to come out. They're putting the farmers out in battle against me because they're not brave enough to come out themselves. By and large, the farmers are not the ones profiting from animal use. We know they're not. They're on the street corners every day protesting that they don't have enough money to live on. Farmers in Ireland have very, very low income. Some of them are on the dole. I mean, the whole EU subsidy system is the equivalent of the dole. I mean, who else gets paid if their work goes wrong or if their customers don't turn up? But farmers do, because they're subsidised. So I hope that.
So you talk about the transition and what they need to do next. Is that
Yeah. And you know, they're not the ones that are being looked after here, because if they were being looked after, they would be introducing plant-based agriculture so that farmers could transition, or non-harmful ways of earning a living, even through forestry, because we will need a lot more forestry to help this world recover. So they're all the reasons why it's not an anti-farming campaign. But the most important one is that our ads are not saying, look at what the farmers are doing, they're terrible people. We're saying this is what you are paying for when you're not vegan. And you know something? A lot of farmers know that too. They know that. If the question is something about PETA?
Yeah, so let's just say somebody has, let's just say a jacket, for instance, and they have fur trim.
Yeah.
The collar, and it's like fake fur. We know that fake fur isn't always fake fur, but if it's verified by PETA, I'm assuming that that's probably real fake fur.
So the question is.
Animals are beautiful, so I get that people want to copy them, right?
Yeah, the question is what do I think of products like fake fur? Do you know something? You just think the fake fur is a bit obnoxious, because why copy something that's so exploitative? And on the other hand, it's a little bit like, the dairy. A lot of people, when they first go vegan, they could not bear to eat fake meat, but they've no problem eating fake cheese. It's a little bit the same in the clothing industry. The fake fur seems obnoxious, and on the other hand, the fake leather doesn't. Why is that? I suppose it's because what else are you going to put on your feet except something that doesn't look like leather, whereas you do have a choice in fake wool, you see. Something that's knitted out of cotton that looks a little bit like wool doesn't seem half so obnoxious. And I think it's because it's so unnecessary. It's so unnecessary to take the skin of the hair of the fur of another animal to use as our clothing. There's really no need for fake fur. The fake leopard skin, the fake snake skin, that all, I think we would be just better to move away, because of course it's, you might go in and just buy a coat because it's cheap and it's warm and it happens to have a fake fur trim on it. But to move completely away from any replica of what we've done to them, metaphorically or in reality, that would be our aim, really. At the same time, there's so I wouldn't focus all my energy there. If somebody's on the street and they're doing good activism and there happens to be a fake fur trim on their coat, that's not as important to waste our energy there as it is with the person who doesn't realise or doesn't care that what they're paying into is causing such devastating harm and rights violations. I think that's the thing to get across all the time, that other animals are beings who have rights, and we violate their rights when we use them. Yes, Nikki.
I find it fascinating that you have this deep psychological education and understanding. And I find with people I talk to that I used to be part of a religious group. So my friend Sandra, who I became a vegan because of her about 5 years ago, and she said to me, how can you speak about oneness and then eat a hamburger? And I find all my religious friends are like that. They speak about oneness. So the oneness is sort of here with two-leggeds, but they don't seem to expand it to animals. So how do you speak to them about that? Because it feels like you just have to bust through something. So on a human psychology level, is there anything you recommend?
The question is that, you know, a lot of people with a religious or a spiritual belief will speak about our oneness with everything on earth, but in reality still use other animals. And that's the essence of Go Vegan World, is to show us what's hidden, to show us what's very carefully hidden from us and what we get very carefully hide from ourselves, and to do it in such a way that we show people who other animals are, and we talk to them about them being beings who have rights, and their rights are violated when we use them, and to encourage people with respect. You can be very respectful in your advocacy with people, but you also don't compromise the other animals. And what we do to them is atrocious. And, you know, I had a question on radio the other day. I think it was from Daniel here. You know, this idea that if you respect the other animal, that there's no harm in killing and eating or wearing that animal. Well, you wouldn't think anyone respected you if they took your life from you. This is very simple. Veganism is not an animal rights. It's the most simple thing on the planet. It's something I think as humans that we were all born. Which of us were born wanting to hurt another animal? You know, what baby who's hungry would go out and catch another animal and kill that animal and eat that animal? None of us. You know, what baby or what child, if they knew that another child was going to lose their mother for an ice cream, would choose to eat the ice cream? You know, given a little bit of moral development and psychological development, no child would do that. And to use those examples to let people see, no, hold on a second here, you think you're being respectful, but you're not being respectful. You think you're being one, but is it being one to do what we do to other animals, to violate their reproductive systems, to take their children from them, to incarcerate them, to own them as property, to treat them as inanimate beings who are nothing but a bloody inconvenience because they happen to be alive? Because that's how they're treated. They're just a bloody inconvenience because they happen to be alive before we can kill them and profit from them.
I think we're going to have to finish it there. It's 3 o'clock. I know some people have got events to get to as well. If there's any closing comment you'd like to make?
I just thank you all for coming here today and giving, more so than me, giving the animals of Eden the opportunity to interact with you and let you see how their campaign is running. And I would really appreciate people getting behind the campaign, and let's hope that we can expand it to other countries and give this clear, consistent message that is proving to work. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of going out there and carrying this message. And if there's something that I can personally do to support you in your activism, please come to me. Or if there's anybody who had any questions and they felt shy or uncomfortable about asking them in public today, email me. It's info@goveganworld.com. Your questions and your comments and your suggestions are all very welcome. Thank you.